Lovely to see you. Live at 5 here on Coaching the Man. It's so good to see you. We are bang smack in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Week. And this year, the theme of mental health awareness is all about nature, getting outside and embracing what it is that's outside your front door, whether it is a wood, a forest, a field, or indeed you can have access to a lake or a river or the seaside if you're lucky enough. In many places, this is what it's all about, to make your mental health better, where it's encouraging people to go and spend some time in nature, which is amazing. So I hope that you found some time this week even to just get out and explore the parks and the fields and the forests around you. I am joined by another guest on today's Live at 5, and it is another week with a life coach, which I'm really excited about. As most of you know, Coaching the Man is all about life coaching, and it's really great to have and share these conversations with other life coaches who have completely different set of experiences. Last week it was Adam, this week it's Lee, so I'm going to bring Lee in. Oh, he's here. Excellent. Let's bring Lee in. It's a podcast. We're going to have a chat about that. Um, so yeah, jump in. Let us know how you were doing, what you were up to. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How is sunny France?
It's sunny now, but it was pissing down not 5 minutes ago, and I got caught out in the rain with the dogs. So
No
I
way.
have two smelly, wet dogs running about downstairs. But you know what? It's part of the fun, ain't it?
Yeah. You always seem to, and you do a lot of your videos from walking the dogs in those beautiful fields that you have around your house. So you are like the picture version of getting outside and embracing nature.
Do you know what? It's really important. I didn't realise just how important it was, not only for just the dogs getting out, but also from my point of view. Being outside allows me to slow my brain down.
Yeah.
Because it runs at 100 miles an hour, and making that transition from city life to country life was difficult because mentally you're not prepared for it. You're just thinking about moving, setting up, and trying to learn a language and integrating and all that sort of stuff. But mentally, your brain is still running the same way that it was back in the UK, which is 100 miles an hour. And throw into the mix that you're an overthinker, and there's a lot of stuff going on mentally. It just kind of speeds that whole thing up. So being out with the dogs now is my salvation. I do most of, if not all of my videos out there because I can think clearly. It allows me to just be me.
Yeah.
It really does. It's really, really important. And I think also I feed off my dogs because I see my dogs out running, and it's almost like it's the first time they've been out,
Yeah.
and they're just so free, and it's just nice to feed off of their energy.
Yeah.
So it absolutely 100% being outside as often as possible is just what I need.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And when they announced that the theme of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week was all about nature, I was like, that's so perfect. Based on the year that we've all had, where like last year we were all being prescribed one walk outside. Yet so many people really struggle to even make that happen on a daily basis.
Yeah, I grew up in an estate, so we lived in a maisonette, so we didn't have any outside space. But as kids, we was always out, and it was literally like if we got shouted in, we were in within 2 minutes. But we spent most of our time outside. But when we had the luxury of having a garden, we didn't know what to do with it because we wasn't used to it. It was just kind of like this space outside that was for the dog. And that was it. We didn't make use of the fact that we had this piece that was designated for us to do whatever we wanted with it. We used to just kind of close the curtain on it. It was so funny because it's in you, conditioned into you that the only way you go outside is if you go out, as in play out front or go around the shops. And so now we live here in France. We've got a lot of space. It's a lot of space, but it's ours. Do you know what I mean? Like we can break it into different sections and kind of really allow their creativity to kind of take over. And so we really appreciate it now. We really appreciate it. And
it's a really interesting perspective that you never really had green space. You never really had outdoor space that was your own, and that you grew up on an estate that was probably primarily concrete jungle with a couple of trees for box ticking exercises?
Even the kind of the swings and that was concrete. You know, there was the only grass you'd see was growing through the cracks of the actual paving slabs. Do you know what I mean? We had a
Yeah.
big green over the back, but it was almost like a divide from one estate to the other. So it was kind of like no man's land. You know, it was like
Yeah.
a neutral piece of territory. But you know, we was growing up on street corners and on buses and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
going out into nature was just not heard of.
No. And it's so amazing that we can all now begin to realize that we need to appreciate it a little bit more, even if it is something like going out in nature, but also even more so, I think nowadays with everything that we've got online, on social media, on Netflix, and all of those that are basically telling us how badly the planet is damaged and how much we need to embrace what we've got.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think even down to kind of, because we are almost a reflection of nature anyway, you know, the way that we kind of nurture and nature each other and the way that we kind of, we grow and we evolve, you know, it's we are what we put in ourselves, you know, food, information, knowledge, you know, whatever we absorb is what we become. And so allowing ourselves space and freedom really allows us to kind of really, our imaginations to grow as big as they can and kind of push past the limitations that we put on ourselves. And TV now, because it's quite diverse and there's so much to choose from, you know, I'm kind of connecting with things that I would never have watched, like documentaries and stuff that, you know, National Geographic and stuff about, you know, how parts of different countries were formed. I would never have watched stuff like that. But my first for that now to understand how we became and, you know, how we got here, is just really, really apparent now because it's there, you know, it's there for, if you look for it, you'll find it.
Yeah. But it's all connected, isn't it? Like, I mean, the grass grows quicker after a storm. We become better, we grow and become like better people because of the struggles we've been through the storms we've been through. There was a saying that really struck me last year when I was first diagnosed with testicular cancer, and someone said, you know, you will go through a stage of post-traumatic growth. And I was like, that's a really interesting perspective to have, and I've heard of it, but at the time I was like, I'm not really classing myself as somebody who's going through trauma, but I guess in a way it's a life-altering event, it's a storm in its own sense, and maybe afterwards I will begin to become, you know, the new version of myself with that growth of what I've learned in the storm, to coin a phrase.
I totally agree, because that's where reflection comes into it. Because when you're going through something, you're in it, so you don't see it, you're just experiencing it. You know, you're part of it. And then when you kind of grow out of it, you look back and you go, "Shit, I can really see now what I was in." Because you're you know, you're looking back on it, and in that kind of sense. So I totally get that. I think anything that we go through, and you know, being a coach yourself, you know, you try to teach people that if you've gone through that, your resilience shows that you're able to actually overcome other things as well, and pointing out stuff that people have gone through, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, themselves, that have actually impacted their lives, is really important to show people, because it allows them to see that, you know, they are capable of doing stuff that they really don't allow themselves to see. They just look at it as maybe a misfortune or something that's kind of bad, or it's an experience they want to put behind them. But if you flip it slightly for them and show them that there is what you've done, there's your proof that you can overcome something and you can actually change and grow into something else, that's the method you need to use.
Yeah. Because I think we've all had that. And I said last week that everybody who works in this industry has had their own period of time where they've gone through it and it's not been comfortable, but they've come out the other side. And by realizing what you've been through and the people who've helped you, you want to then give it back and pay it forward. What do you find is the biggest challenge between trying to avoid too much reflection on the past and allowing the client to move forward?
For me, it depends on what the client keeps reflecting back to. If they keep reflecting back to certain events, then there's still issues with that event that they need to address. Because if you're looking at one thing that's happened and you keep going, but when this happened and at that time and with this, and it's kind of, okay, so what's still there that you need to address? What's still there that you want to look at? Because you're still dragging that with you. And so and that's quite telling, because you can just sit back for a little while and you can just listen to someone talking and you'll pick up on things, and there will be patterns, like patterns of language, patterns of behavior, and things that they refer back to. It'll always be a particular thing, a particular event. And so you'll pick up on that, and then you'll go, okay, so I've heard you say this, and this is what you've been saying to me. You know, what does this mean to you? And then when you feed that back into them, and it comes from your voice, they're like, oh, I didn't really see that. And it's like, okay, so what is it about that you still hold on to? And then you can start unpicking that with them, because I like to work forwards, but I know there's a little bit of things that you have to go back and kind of disengage with. Because you have to address that, you know, it has to be there. Otherwise, they're going to keep dragging it with you, and you're not really doing your job properly, because you're just going, well, let's forget about that and let's just move this. You have to go back a little bit just to allow them to see, and then you give them the tools to deal with that. Because there are some events in people's life that they have to manage, because they're things that they just can't forget. You know, they can't forget them. So you give them the tools to manage that. So when it comes up, how are you going to react to that? You know, so if you don't react to it, how are you going to respond? You know, what do you normally do? Okay, so let's change that and look at a different way to actually respond to that. You know, because if you use, so for me personally, with my mental health, I was always battling it, and it was always keeping me down. And then I embraced it, and I took the power back from it. It became mine. I owned it. You know, it didn't own me anymore. So I know that I suffer with it. I know I have my days, and I know what to deal with it. So I allow it and give it that time to come out of the box and play about it. And then I'm like, right, let's get back in, because I've got things to do. I've got a life to lead. So you take that power back because you've acknowledged that it's there, and you've accepted that it's yours, and it's yours to deal with in the way that you see fit, and with the tools and the knowledge that you've got. And I'm always going in searching of different ways, because if I feel this way, then other people will. And if I can pass my knowledge on to them, for them to either bastardize it or to add it to what they've already got, that's what I'm all about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not keeping it to myself, because it's there to share.
Absolutely. And I say that all the time. I say sometimes, like, you know, I'll go to share something or say something in a video and put it online and see somebody else has done it. But at the same time, you know, when I learn something, it's not mine to keep, it's mine to share.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about the language that people use, because as a coach, you'll know that there's so much power in sharing the language that people use when they're talking about events of their past. I think in neurolinguistics, they call it anchoring. So you anchor something to an event in the past, and then you wrap language around the rope. And if you use the language that they use to connect that anchor to themselves and moving forward into the future, it's really, really, you know, in that light bulb moment, they go, I'm like, I didn't say anything new. I just said what you said.
Yeah.
But to hear those words back is it's so powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things you learn is paraphrasing. So you're going to say exactly back to them what they're saying to you, and then you say to them, "What did you hear me say?" And they'll go, "Blah blah 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 blah." So right, but they're your words. That's what you said to me. So if you're saying that, do you really mean that? Then you need to say what you mean, because people will generalize and they will use words that have a completely different connotation, or they will use words that actually don't fit the sentence, but they just use it because they think they should.
Yeah.
You know, you go to so with that again. So with language, it's also the language they say about themselves. You know, how they view themselves. Because if you're saying that, you know, I'm not intelligent, I'm not this, it's like, okay, is it because academically you're not strong, but you can be intelligent in other areas? But because they're not strong in what they believe should be an academic way, therefore they're not intelligent. Do you know what I mean? So if you can help them retrain that and use different words and say, academically I struggle a little bit, but I'm good at maths, not too good at geography. Okay, so now you're defining what you're saying. And then they start to go, oh, actually, I see what you mean. So it's like, but people will totally put an umbrella over it, and they'll just go, I'm just not intelligent. And they'll believe that because they're reinforcing that all the time. So if something doesn't go right academically, they'll go, see, I told you, I'm not intelligent. And it's like, but you are. You know, you are intelligent because you've just said this, or you've just done that, or you've overcome this. You know, you passed your driving test, you passed your theory. Therefore, it was a test that you had to pass that everybody's got to do, and you've done it. And so you're giving them something that they've done, and they're going, oh, so then you're re-anchoring. You're giving them something else, which is a positive influence on them, because they're going, oh yeah, I see what you mean. So it's like, right, so then let's just look at how you say things about yourself. You know, when you introduce yourself, do you introduce yourself in a negative way? and go, oh, you know what, it's typical me if I drop a drink on the floor, it's typical me if I do this? Or do you introduce yourself and say, hi, my name's Lee, pleased to meet you? I said, and you leave it open. I said, and then you have a conversation. And so it's again, if you really, really tune into somebody in the way that they say things, it's really telling, like really,
Yeah.
really telling.
Yeah, and interesting how sometimes people will shut themselves down in the course of a couple of sentences before you've even really got to understand their strengths. They're providing you with their weaknesses, and I think it's an interesting it's an interesting character trait, because I know that there have been times in the past where I've maybe been intimidated in a bit of in a circle of people, or aspiring to be with people. So I'm trying to put my best foot forward, but instead start telling them everything that I'm bad at. So we're always really quick as people to tell to say and identify the things we don't like and the things we're not good at, but we actually don't default. I call it the American way sometimes, because if you meet an American, they'll tell you all the things they're good at and all the things that they've achieved and all of the things that they are about themselves. They'll never tell you the negative. And as much as sometimes it can be overpoweringly like, whoa, this is really positive and I don't need your CV, it's actually really, energizing.
It is. I mean, because like you said, I was one of those people that I walk into a room and I'm like, right, I need to tell these people what I don't like about myself before they point it out. Because if I do that, I've protected myself then. I put that barrier up and they can't hurt me. Whereas now it's kind of like, but they don't know these things about me. They don't even know who I am. So why am I telling them things about me that I don't like about myself and just allowing them to reinforce that anyway? So why don't I just tell them, hi, my name's Lee, and then just see where it goes with that? Do you understand what I mean? So it's a preconception based on a preconception, which isn't real, because we think what we think someone else is already thinking about us, but we don't even fucking know them. We've never met them. Do you know what I mean? And so we're walking in there thinking they know all this stuff about me, but actually they don't even know my name.
Yeah. So when you went to France and you were like in a whole new country, a whole new language, a whole new area in the world, was there power in being able to go, nobody knows me, so I could literally walk down the road and tell them I'm a famous actor in Ireland,
do you know what?
I'm a billionaire?
I think, one of the things that for me about moving to a different country was the fact that I could be me. And it is almost like you're starting over again. And I didn't have to be someone's son, someone's brother, someone's uncle, someone's mate, someone's husband. I didn't have to be any of that. I could just be me. And then I could introduce myself to people. But at the same time, I was reintroducing myself to myself, because you get so lost in what everybody else expects from you, your own expectations, life, and just the environment that you're in, that you don't even know who you are anymore. Do you know what I mean? You really don't. And so moving to France really, really changed my life, because it allowed me to disentangle from everything that I believed about myself. And
that's so interesting, because I've just had a little bit of a moment, because when I grew up, I was always my brother's brother. And whenever I would meet somebody, it would be, oh, you're Barry's brother. So they have a preconceived idea of me through him. And when I got to the age that I was able to travel, I left the country, and everybody I met didn't know me. And now I'm in the UK, and everybody that knows me because of who I am, but not because of my family where I grew up. So that's just really landed with me, because I'm sitting here in a country that I didn't grow up in either, and I'm like, how is it moving to France? And I'm like, David, you're not in your hometown.
Yeah, and it is. And I think that what happens is that you then begin to see who you really are, what you're really about, what your capabilities are, what you like, what you don't like, what you're into, what you're not into. And it's almost like, I wouldn't say the board is clear, because there are aspects of you that you can't change. I mean, I can't change the fact that I'm a man. I can't change the fact that I'm married to a man. I can't change the fact that I'm 6'5". But within myself, there was so much that I was like, fuck, man, you are proper fucked up. Do you know what I mean? But be really objective about it.
Yeah.
Because going through the whole, coaching process and the learning and the academic side and everything like that, you learn so much about yourself anyway. But then you'll go straight into placement, you get given your clients, and so the work you're doing on yourself, you're still doing with clients as well. So there's never that time that you know, I need to sit down and kind of work out who I am here and where I fit. But moving, it was kind of like, I've just started this career that I've wanted, but now we're setting up and moving to another country. And there was no, I was like, fine, let's do it. Because everything about me had changed and I hadn't realised it. Do you know what I mean? And when we was presented with this opportunity, it's like, should we just set up and go? And it was like, let's do it.
Yeah. Like
And
you've outgrown your own surroundings.
you do, you kind of, yeah, I think you do. I think what happens is, well, no, you do to a degree, but life was quite toxic as well. You know, I was burning the candle at both ends and something had to give. Do you know what I mean? It had to give. I was kind of feeling that I was starting to drift back to the way that I was before, prior to having my breakdown. And I was like, I can't, man. This is just a bit too much now. And I think I had the strength and the courage to go, right, let's just do what's best for us and let's just, you know, move. And we did. And you do, you kind of like look around and you think, no one knows me here. Like, nobody knows me here. I didn't think I was going to function without any kind of human input, but actually, do you know what? I love it. Like, so how lockdown is for people was what it was like when we first moved here. I had absolutely no people traffic. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't speak the language. You know, it wasn't the case of just walking down the road to a little cafe. You know, everything was in the car and drive. And then, as I said, mentally, you've not done that transition. So the second year, I was like, right, we're selling, we're moving. I can't live here, you know. And I was like literally on the brink of just, right, I'm going. I can't handle this. And it was like a series of events. And I think I was like, hang on, let's just take a step back here. You know, this is what we was kind of working towards anyway. It's come a little bit earlier than we expected, but let's just look at it for what it is. And, you know, I was making Mark drive around and find different houses and driving to different parts of France, looking in Spain and all that. And it was kind of like, but I like it. It's like, but I don't, I want to move. And then, you know, when you sit down and you think, let's just really take stock of this situation. And then I kind of realised that I was just reacting to the way that I was feeling. And the way I was feeling was new. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel here. I was trying to put the life that I had into the life that I've got, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It really didn't work. And being allowed to not have to get up to a routine and not having to worry about what you do on a day-to-day basis. And if I wanted to binge watch Netflix, I could. No one was going to tell me off. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was difficult to get my head around it, because I've always taken direction from somebody in some capacity, and being your own person and being your own boss was scary.
There is that real difference in expectation of yourself. You know, you have to, especially like living in, I mean, I haven't moved away into the countryside, but I mean, with the hindsight of being locked down and essentially everywhere is like the countryside because it's just as quiet, but being able to kind of implement the day you want. Somebody once asked me, describe your perfect day. And I was like, that's a really interesting question. But for me, I've spent so many years getting up to work for somebody else's money, to, you know, driving somebody else's car, coming home to pay rent for somebody else's house. It's all a little bit like I've always had to do things because other people made me do them. And yes, I was choosing that life, but there was so much about cutting the ties with big corporation, going out on your own, becoming your independent and a freelancer. It's quite therapeutic and it's freeing and it's quite, I mean, it's unsettling. And like you said, you tend to spend a lot of your time reacting because that's what you've always done. Like you go, okay, there's a new sales target. Okay, let's react. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Whereas now you're kind of proactive in your life, or not necessarily reacting or proacting, responding to to around you. And I respond so much to what's going on for me in each day. I have like 7 or 8 things that happen every day. You know, I exercise, I get up, I wash myself, I eat, you know, all of those things. But then the day can go wherever I plan it, and I can plan it a couple of days in advance, or if there's nothing in the diary, I can do what I like. And it's not me stepping away from the world. It's actually me responding to how my body wants to live its life and how my mind has its perfect day.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for me now, I found freedom and lifestyle, you know, the freedom to do what I want, to have the lifestyle that I lead. And it was hard. as I said, because you're taking the shackles off and you're going, I'm going to do what the fuck I want because I can and I will. And, you know, can and will are really, really powerful words because the possibilities are endless then. You know, I can do this and I will do this. Let me find a way to do this because I know it can be done. If someone else has done it before, I can do it. I just need to find a way that works for me. Do you know what I mean? And so when you instill that into someone and go, okay, what do you want to do? And I always tell my clients, dream big. Dream as big as you can. Because if you limit yourself to something and you don't achieve that, then you're going to it's going to have such a detrimental impact on you. But if you dream huge and say that you want to be an astronaut, okay, let's find out how to get you into fucking space. And if we can't get you into space, let's get you into a balloon and get you in the sky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the bigger it is, the more the imagination opens doors for you. You know, it's like pushing open Pandora's box and going, I'm going to dish out some shit, but in there, mate, there's some really good shit as well.
Yeah.
It's just how you look at it. It really is. And so I think that, you know, being able to, don't get me wrong, unless you have to put a routine and a structure in, otherwise days just drift. And, you know, there is no weekend because every day is just a new day. You know, obviously there is days, but it's not like it was. You know, weekend isn't a reward for working during the week because, you know, I don't have those worries. I own my house, I own my car, you know, I have a business, I have my own business, you know, so it's, and that's not me in that kind of bragging way. But what it is the fact that it brings a new set of worries, but they're worries that I can deal with. I'm not worrying about somebody else or worrying about the impact of me not turning up for work and, you know, how that's then going to impact on somebody else and, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's just a case of like, okay, I know what I'm doing Monday to Friday work-wise. I know who I'm showing up for in that capacity. Okay, so what do I need? You know, and acknowledging that and then feeding that. You know, I'll have days where I don't want to get out of bed, but I have the ability to ask myself, why now? You know, why am I feeling like this? And I can track it back and I can go, okay, well, you sat and ate like, you know, a whole box of chocolates last night. You didn't go to bed till 12:30. That's going to play into that. Something happened like the day before and it triggered you. So there, that's playing into you as well. So I'm able to do that because I've slowed my life right down and I've made it so small because that's what suits me. You know,
That's
every
what makes
decision.
that's what makes it manageable.
Yeah, because every decision you make it has to be about you first. It has to be because if you don't and you make it about somebody else, then really what you're doing is at some point you're going to resent that decision because you have an expectation attached to that. If I do this for you, I expect. You know, if you ask me to do something, I expect.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? And so if you're doing something and you're going, okay, so is this the right decision for me? Is this the right choice for me? You know, if you're asking me to do something, I'll do it for you. But are you asking me to do it because you can't do it yourself and it's just easier for me to do it? Or are you asking me because you really need my help?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're allowed to, I have the ability now to be able to think before I react. So, you know, going back to that response and reaction thing again, you know, I'm not like, yeah, I'll do it. And then thinking, actually, I haven't got the capacity to do that. It's kind of like, yeah, sure, right. But before I do this, let's see if we can actually work this out now before, you know, because it could just be something really simple. But normally it's kind of like, oh, I can't do this. Can you do this for me? It's kind of like, well, why can't you do it? What have you tried? Because when you help people, you're not fixing, you know, you're solving their problem. But if you help people by showing them how to solve their problem themselves, you know, that's empowerment right there.
You know, it's interesting, like, because what you said about, like, you know, some days you'll wake up and you won't want to get out of bed, and then you have the awareness to be able to turn around and go, okay, what's this connected to? And I do exactly that. I'm like, why are you doing this? Because you know you're going to get up. You can roll around here for half an hour being that stubborn child, but you know eventually you're going to get up, so you might as well just do it now. But the can and try thing, you know, I can and I will, and I can and I'll try. What was the biggest kind, you know, since you've moved to France and since you took control of what sounds like taking control of your life, what was the biggest things that you realized that you could do and you tried and actually ended up working out?
Hang on, is that charging? I think for me was starting my own business, and things that I would go on, I can't do that, or that's definitely out of my capability, or I don't know how to do that. And then when you don't know how to do something, I would leave it. I'd be like, what's the point? But then I was like, well, hang on a minute. Let me just see what I can do. Let me just see if it's as bad as I think it's going to be. Let me just do a little bit of research. Let me just ask Google. Let me just see what Siri's going to say to me. Because all these things that we have available to us, we don't necessarily use in the right way, because we tend to have that, I can't do that, and that's it. Nothing else gets explored. Is this not charging? Hang on, mate. I don't think my thing's charging.
It's interesting. I mean, once you sort that out, and I asked that because, like, when I turned 30, when I was approaching 30, there was so much. I felt so much pressure, not just on me, but from the other men around me who are currently going into the transitioning from the 20s into the 30s, and that social expectation of you should be, you know, settled in a job, you should have a pensionable job, you should be, you know, achieving above and beyond your station, you should be, you know, settled down, buying a house, all of those things. And I was like, I am not there. But I had the awareness to go, that is not even where my compass is pointed.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do to make this worth it? So it was like this change. I was like, what am I going to make these next 10 years, like the 30s? Well, how am I going to make them count? And I just kind of took a little bit of a look at myself and went, actually, there's so much that I can change to make my life better that doesn't involve me having to start following what the social calendar makes me feel like I should do. You know, and that involved so many things, like prioritizing my health. So I gave up smoking, I stopped drinking, I started deciding what it was I was going to eat better, I was going to exercise more. Like all of these things, you know, they're part of my daily life now, and they're just normal. But at one point, I was doing all of those things. Like I was drinking, I was smoking, I wasn't exercising, I was eating crap, you know, and then wondering why the hell I was this big ball of anxiety.
But you know, you're right in what you're saying, because a lot of it is expectation of others. You know, that's how you're supposed to do things. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, drinking, smoking, going out, going clubbing, making sure your body looks a certain way. You know, because you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it to impress. You're doing it to be accepted. You're doing it because you want people to see you, that you are actually part of that tribe, and you're following this kind of same thing. And then you get to the point and you think, that's bollocks, because that's where the inner turmoil comes in. Because what you're doing is you're going, this is what is expected of me, this is what I want. This shouts louder than this, because only you are backing that up. Everybody else is reinforcing this and making it louder. Do you know what I mean? And so when you start to realise that actually what I want is far more important than what people want from me, then that voice starts to get louder. And this one, you can start turning the volume down. It's like, is that really benefiting me? You know, it's like cutting people out of your life and stuff. It's like, what do these people bring to me? You know, what value do they add to my life? Am I just still entwined in these people because of the fact that I was emotionally invested in them? And, you know, in that kind of sense. And sometimes it is quite harsh, but it's like, am I just doing it now because it's just become a habit? It's just because of what's expected. And that expectation is such a burden, you know, it really is. It's such a burden because it's not yours, it's somebody else's. It's what someone else has taught you and led you to believe that life is. Do you know what I mean? Like, my mum would say to me when I was younger, I just want you to be happy. Okay, so what is that? What does that look like to you? Is that happy that, you know, to do what you never achieved? Or is that my happiness? And if it's my happiness, what is that? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's something that's not, there's no content to it. It's just words. I just want you to be happy. Okay, so I'm not happy. Well, I just want you to be happy. Do you know, it goes no further than that, because they don't know what else to say. They don't know what that actually means, what it actually looks like. Because if they're not feeling that way themselves, how the fuck are they going to explain it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, happiness is really interesting because I think you'll probably agree. It's not a destination, you know, of what we've probably grown up. Like, I just want you to be happy sounds like something that you strive to achieve. And once you get it, you have it for life.
It's not.
But
It's a balance.
it's not, is it? Is it a choice? Would you say it's a choice?
Balance. Happiness is the opposite to unhappy. And I think for me, finding contentment is a healthy balance of both. because I know that if I'm happy, it's not linear, it's not sustainable,
Mm.
because I'm not in control of the way someone's going to make me feel. So therefore, if someone makes me feel unhappy, I'm not
Yeah.
happy. So in regards to that, so for me, it's about finding the balance and just being content. I'm content. My life is content. I'm very content with the life that I have. You know, I've built this life and I'm content with it. There are days I'm going to be up here. There's days that I'm going to be down there. But I can deal with that. I can manage that. You know, I have the ability to do that now because I've found balance. I know that some days I'm going to feel bad and some days I'm going to be totally elated.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's important to find balance.
So would you say that you have all the tools in your arsenal in order to be able to help yourself out on those days when you're not?
No way. There's no way. You can never stop learning, mate. There's so much about myself that I've yet to even find out. Do you know what I mean? But that's the beauty of life, is the fact that there will be times when I'm like, what is this I'm feeling? You know, why do I feel like this? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a good thing. You know, testing myself and challenging myself, the stuff that I don't know or understand, you
Mm.
know. And so once I go in and start diving in and discovering those, that's going to make me feel a different way, but behave in different ways and react to different ways. But the way that I am now, I know myself, but I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I leave that to the lap of the gods. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think as well as that, like sometimes, oh, there's a question. Hold on. What the question is, can you find joy or happiness when your life has hits of negativity and garbage?
Do you want to go first?
I would say yes. I would say you can find joy and happiness in so many aspects. I think sometimes what we do is we allow negativity and garbage to spill out into the entire day rather than allowing it to just take up that one moment or that one event in a day. And you know, it's like so many things. You know, in the craziest of crazy times when things don't seem like there's anything else that's a priority, and we find that a lot in like when people get sick or people have accidents and we end up going, you know, oh my god, this is the most prioritizing thing now. But as soon as that person, it seems to be like we've dealt with the situation or we've addressed it and we've looked at it, then we can kind of begin to go, okay, you know, humans, we add a little bit of humor and we add a little bit, like, I mean, even like 2 days after I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, you know, we were sat around the family dinner table talking about, you know, ball puns. And, you know, you laugh at these things because you're allowing yourself joy and happiness and realizing that you can do that. And I think the human mind and us as humans, we are so resilient, like you mentioned at the beginning. We are so we have so much power within us to be able to manage so many different things and multitask. And sometimes what happens is, like you said earlier on, we give too much volume to the negativity and not enough volume to the potential positivity that's in the room.
Yeah.
And it's like walking into a room and one person is in a bad mood. Maybe it's a teacher or a boss or somebody, and you can feel that in your bones. It takes a lot of energy to counteract that. So
Mm.
I think it's just practice, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think also if you read the question, she said there's hints of garbage. So there is hints of it. There's always going to be hints of stuff that we don't like, but it's how we acknowledge it that is really testament to us, because we can, you know, as I said, we can lead with that and go, my day is really shit. Well, actually, it's only 12 o'clock, so it's not your day, is it? It's just your morning.
Yeah.
You know, so if I have a bad day, it means I've had a bad full 24 hours. But if I've had a bad few hours, I'm actually saying it as it actually is. So if you've got hints of shitty day, you know, sometimes that shitty day isn't necessarily your responsibility.
Mm.
So don't take responsibility for it. You know, don't take full blame for it. Take what is yours and give everything else back. Because otherwise, we take it as, if I've got a shitty day, therefore it's my shitty day, so I'll just own all of that. Don't do that. Take
Yeah.
yours and give back people's fair share. Because once you start doing that, you'll start to see it more clearer, and you will
Mm.
start to then realise that actually you do need to look for the balance in it. You know, you really
Yeah.
do.
But if you always have things in your day, like you have your walks with the dogs, right? So if you always have things that you know in your day are going to make you happy, if you always have those non-negotiable things, you're like, I'm always going to do this because it's always going to make me feel good, then you know that there's guaranteed happiness in every day.
Yeah, of course, but she was just saying it was just, oh, I didn't know if it was he or she, but they were just saying, you know, again, we were focusing on the negative stuff. So if I was to ask you, okay, so tell me about the overwhelming parts that are joyous and happy, it would be a completely different question, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Because it's kind
Yeah.
of like, okay, we know the garbage bits are there, but tell me about something happy. Tell me about something that was positive. Tell me about something that put a smile on your face. Now
Yeah.
remember that feeling. Let's create that again.
Yeah.
Because we can focus on the negative because we all know how to fail. But a lot of us are scared of success because it's new. We don't know what it feels like.
Yes.
Do you know what I
So
mean?
true. It's
But
so
we don't.
true.
But we don't. So we'll all go, oh
So
yeah,
true.
you know, I'm setting myself to fail. Okay, failure is a lesson, you
Yeah.
know, but you set yourself up to succeed. Like I said to you, the bigger your dream, you're never going to fail because there's going to be a lesson somewhere that you're going to learn and go, right, that didn't go right. I need to change this. But if you go,
Yeah.
that didn't fucking work, therefore it's shit, and it's like,
Never
well, there
works.
you
Yeah.
go. It never does it? But if you go,
Yeah.
actually, that's where it went wrong. That's what I need to change. You know,
Yeah.
if I
It's
change
always
that,
interesting. It's always interesting because as coaches and as people who are interested in human behavior, like, do you find yourself like really over analyzing how you feel sometimes?
yeah, I was saying to somebody today actually that I have this ability to completely forget who I am, and because I go into coaching mode, and it's not a good thing because as much as I try to detach myself from being something, you know, you have to remember who you are and
Yeah.
Lee first and foremost. Do you know what I mean? And without Lee, I wouldn't be a coach, and so I can't be a coach and then be Lee. It doesn't work. You know,
Mm.
it doesn't work, and I'm not as hypercritical as I used to be, but I still need to be made and felt grounded. Do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of Mark does that. You know, he's kind of like, come on, man, seriously. And I'm like, all right, well, what do you think about this? And he'll go, now say that again to yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I thought so. And
But
so
it's
it's
nice.
good.
It's nice. It's nice that you have like soundboards like that.
Yeah, it's important. I think everybody's got one in their life. You know what I mean? Everyone's got that person they can go and say a certain thing to.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful that you're not going to that person because you want that answer back from them. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking for 42 minutes now and I haven't even asked you about your podcast. So how did that come about? Because I mean, you know, podcasts, especially from coaches, I absolutely love because they just are this again, you know, and this
I
is my,
didn't want,
my,
for me, I didn't want the podcast to be about me being a coach. For me, it was more about interested in people. You know, I'm
mm,
really curious about people, and I'm really curious about what people have overcome. And so I wanted to create a space where people come on and they talk about an experience that's impacted them and that they've evolved from. Because it's understand. Look, we're all different. Man. We're all different. We're all different shapes, sizes, the lot. So our experiences are different, but there's similarities there. And so it's the experience that I'm interested, not the similarity, because and also it's you know, that person knows that what they have to say is important, because a lot of us dumb that stuff down. You know, we don't think it's important to anybody. You know, why would it be? Well, it is, because there's something in that that's going to help somebody else. There's a bit of information in there that will be words that a person couldn't find to
yeah,
articulate the way that they're feeling. And so I just wanted to kind of create that sort of thing. And it's easy to sit and talk about mental health. You know, it does need to be raised. It does need to talk about, but there's also a different way of talking about mental health. You know, it is about an impact, something that's impacted your life so badly that it's made some sort of change or some sort of shift. You know,
like
and
storytelling essentially.
basically it is. It's kind of like, this is what happened, this is what I went through, this is where I am now. And it's kind of like, right, see, he's done that, she's done that, you know. So like I said about the kite and the can and want to, you know, you can get through this. It's not going to be easy, but it's achievable. You can do it, but you've just got to want to get through it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can stay stuck in the eye of the storm for as long as you want. That's not going to pass because you're going to keep following it. But if you want to move out of it, then go in the opposite direction.
What I love about everybody's story, anybody who's ever dealt with any sort of life event, there's in everybody's story, there's always hope.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being able to speak your truth, because whatever happened to you, whatever is happening to you, you always do resort to going, well, there's hope, you know, even in your worst days, you hope for the best. Like,
Yeah,
and that is in essence what makes us so resilient as people.
yeah, definitely. And I think, look, if you're sitting there telling me your story, you've made it through.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
And
you've
you're
made it
stronger than
through.
most.
Yeah, and people don't see that. People don't see that. People just think that, you know, that's who I am, and it's not. It's just an event that happened, and you've made your way through it. But what happens is that you've become a far much better person for that, because you fucking made your way through it, and you're here
Mm.
now telling me. Do you know? And then when you say thank you and you hand it back to them at the end, they look at you and they're kind of like, oh, I kind of, right, I see. Oh, even halfway through, I mean, I've recorded a couple where people have gone, I didn't really see that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And just taking the time to give them an example or showing them something that they've actually done themselves without realizing it, you know, is such a powerful exchange. It really
Yeah, I
is.
think as well, like there's so much power in watching or hearing yourself back. I think there's a few times, I mean, I've done it, especially over the course of the last year, where I've just been out and about and I thought, I need to say this out loud because there's so much more power in it. And just recording it, saying it out loud, then listening back to it, you're almost allowing yourself to hear what you say when you're
Yeah,
not filtering yourself.
yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. And I think that that's really important. I think for me, that's really important. And that's how I got onto kind of making videos, was the fact that I wanted to see what I looked like when I was explaining the way that I was feeling, because I only know how I feel. I don't know how that projects or how that transcends to anybody else. And when you see it, you're kind of like, fuck, man, like,
Mm,
it does look how it feels, or I can actually hide that so well that I'm putting on this face that no one can really see what's going on behind. And then, you know, you get to the point where you become strong enough to kind of actually like, this is how I'm feeling, you know, this is what's going on. And there is the power, because you're
mm.
influencing that. You're going, I'm going to tell you and I'm going to show you exactly how I'm feeling inside. And if I'm on a good day, I'll show you that. If I'm on a bad day, I'll show you that as well. So I'm
Mm.
actually showing you who Lee is, rather
Yeah.
than what I'm leading you to believe Lee is.
Yeah, and I think as well as with men especially, and one of the huge reasons why I got into this business is that for the most part, when we feel emotion rising, we slap it away, we change the subject, we don't do it. And I have that instant reaction in me as well. Like, you know, there's been so many times when, you know, I've gone to explain how I'm feeling and I've realized and I've caught myself, I'm like, I'm literally saying words to dazzle you so that I don't actually have to say the word of what I want to say and what, how I feel.
Yeah,
So it's really interesting to watch yourself say that on camera, and you're like, oh my gosh, you literally just said nothing to say nothing. It's so interesting.
it's so true. And going back to what you just said then about, you know, how we don't say something, and then when it gets to hear it, it turns into frustration and anger. So what we're
Yeah,
actually projecting isn't true. It's not a true reflection, because what we are trying to do is suppress the way that we really feel, but that's getting replaced because it has to come out. So therefore we get really angry, really frustrated. So then we get labeled as being angry, or we don't know how to do this. But really it's kind of like, no, that's just a byproduct. You know,
mm,
that's not the primary thing. The secondary thing is really how I'm feeling. You know, so I might be presenting this, but that's not what I'm trying to say to you. And that's what I try to, you know, show to my clients is, tell me what it is you're really trying to say. Don't just tell me what you think I want to hear, because that's bollocks. Tell
yeah,
me, you know. And once you start to learn how to do that, you do then start to. Because I use a tool. If you had the tool called positive traits,
yes,
right? Well, I use that a lot because it's a very simple tool, but it's very telling. Because
mm,
it's just a list of words, and 9 times out of 10, people never ever attribute them to themselves. It's
yeah,
always how they kind of project, or how they perceive, or what they think. And no two words are the same, but yet people will use the same words in a different way, and they mean different things. And
yeah,
so it's reinforcing that if you think you're intelligent because of the fact that you've got documents and you've got academic stuff, it's not just that. You know, intelligence is being able to put one foot in front of the other, tying your shoelaces. It's just how you see it. And a lot of people see intelligence as being, you know, going to school and having degrees and masters and stuff like that. And it's not.
No, it doesn't
And
necessarily give you the life that you might want either.
no, of course not. And I think a lot of us, you know, wish that we could have a certain life, but lead ourselves to believe that we can't achieve it, and we can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I know life gets in the way of life, but you can still involve the life that you want in the life that you already have. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You really can.
I don't think, 10 years ago I could have even envisioned or visualized the life that I have now. I mean, it might have been something that I aspired for, but it would never have been somewhere I put myself. And I think sometimes on the way to achieving a goal, you pick up things and you drop off things along the way, and you have to allow yourself the ability to do that. And you have to, maybe that's people, maybe that's habits, maybe that's traits, maybe that's language, maybe that's relationships. And then along the way, you pick them up just as much as you drop them off. And it's all on the road to you becoming what you want essentially, because every day you wake up, you make a choice to achieve or to do what you want to do in order to move you towards who you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, look, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here. You know, the way that I was and what I believed about myself, I didn't think I'd make it past 30. I didn't think I'd make it past 40. Do you know what I mean? That's how I actually felt. And so to be where I am now, you know, it just goes to show that if you start to believe yourself, and if you start to change your mindset, and you start to look at things as in the way that they really are, rather than the way that you led yourself to believe they are, things can change. And you know, every day that you wake up is opening your eyes is an achievement. You know, getting out of bed is an achievement, but we take it for granted because it's something we do every day. Therefore, it's a habit. Therefore, it's normal. But it's hard for some people. Some people haven't got a bed. Some people haven't got a roof over their head. You know, they're basic fucking levels of need that we have as humans, is to have food, water, bed, you know, and clothing. And we take all that for granted. Do you know what I mean? So when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, all right, I'm here. I get it. You know what I mean? Then I get out of bed and I make a cup of coffee. It's like, I've got a cup of coffee. I've got a coffee machine. You know, some people don't have a cup. Now, I'm not saying that's like that every day, but what I'm saying to you is that I see where I live. I see how I live. Before, I would take that for granted because I was so into myself and thinking that, you know, I feel this way, therefore, you know, that's how I'm going to live. But now I'm like, you know, I've got a view. I have a window with a view, you know.
But
you know,
the more you affirm all of these things to yourself, even on the days that you don't say them or you don't feel them or you're not really in the mindset for them, they're still there, and they're still a constant reminder of all the things you've affirmed to yourself. So by like swinging open the curtain first thing in the morning and realizing what beauty you have outside the door, that's actually, whether you say it out loud or you say it in your head, the act of that habit of something that you do, that's what starts your day.
and don't get me wrong. Listen, even the days that you don't want to get out of bed, you know, acknowledging the fact that you feel a certain way is still, I'm still grateful for that. You know, I'm grateful for the fact that I acknowledge that I'm feeling shitty. I'm still grateful for the fact that I've got a foggy head. I'm still grateful for the fact that I woke up and had a really bad night's sleep, and I'm not running and functioning at 100%. But I'll give 100% of the 40% that I'm feeling. Do you understand what I mean? So it doesn't have to be, oh my God, look at it, I've got like this. It's kind of like, all right, today, right now, this second, I just want to happily strangle somebody, you know. But I acknowledge that, and then I'm like, right, so why am I feeling this way? Why is it? So it's not just about I have a cup with coffee in it that I bought from the shop. It's like, this ain't doing nothing for me at the moment. You know, I'm still feeling this way. So then I'm like, well, I have to acknowledge why I feel like this, what it is. And it's hard sometimes, you know, it's difficult because the last thing you want to do is ask yourself why you feel shit. Do you know what I mean? Because the feeling completely takes over the being. And so it is that constant. But as I said to you, for me, it's about finding balance, you know, and if I find that balance, then I'm happy. It's like the pendulum, isn't it? The further you go up, the less the swing.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. One of them is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your life that sticks with you now? Not necessarily the best, but one of the ones that you hang on to.
I think for me, it's just to be true to myself, really. I think that it's to be honest. I know it's a bit, but but it is. I
No,
always come back to that. I always
I
come back
think
to
it, I think it's yeah, no, I don't think it's at all. I
it.
think it's so true because so many people don't have the ability to do that. So the
Yeah,
fact that you have,
I think for me, I mean, you know, going through different situations and different things in my life, do you know what I mean? One constant in it was me.
mm,
And regardless of what I went through or how I was still, it was still me that was going through it. And so, and you forget that, do you know what I mean? And so
yeah,
as long as I was, so now I'm, what do I need? You know, what does Lee want? What does Lee need right now? How is Lee feeling?
yeah,
You know, talk to myself verbally and also inwardly as well, because it's important to understand you, because yourself is two words, not one. You know, yourself, what does yourself need? You know, what do you need? Tell yourself what yourself needs. So for me, it's like I'm telling myself what I need. So
yeah,
that sense of self becomes more heightened and you become more self-aware. And then,
mm,
you know, it just boosts everything else, you know,
mm,
in that sense. So that's, yeah, so that sense is definitely, you know,
yeah. And as well as walking the dogs in that beautiful countryside that you live in, what else do you do to ground yourself, to level yourself out?
that. So because I walk on the fields and there's nobody else around, I will sing till I go, oh, absolutely. So yesterday I was in the Jeep cleaning and I was singing to Whitney Houston of all people, trying to hit those high notes, and they weren't.
Yes.
But you know what? I didn't care. Like I didn't. Mark went to
What
me.
song were
What
you singing?
the fuck are you doing? I went through a whole repertoire of like, you know, The Bodyguard through to I'm Your Baby Tonight to My Name's Not Susan. I was doing it all, mate. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
Doing
love
it
that.
all. Dancing, cleaning, had my hands down the toilet and everything. But that's what I'm saying to you. That's what I need. Sometimes for me, is literally the way to let it out is just to sing at the top of my lungs, and I'll come back and you go to me, "You've been singing again," and we're like, "Yeah,
I can smell it off you.
yeah." It's like, "Yeah, no," but it is because that's my thing. You know,
Yeah,
music's always been the one constant source that's got me through it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Literally, you know, it's the one thing that I go, right, what he's just said there is how I'm feeling, and
mm.
it helps me articulate. And also, you know, who doesn't like to dance like no one can see you?
Well, I do that all the time. Like
Yeah,
we
man.
literally like just call Alexa and just tell her to put any random song on and just dance to it. You know, it's so liberating. I recommend it highly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we film it so that other people are entertained, but that's just because we're exhibitionists.
Mark recorded me once and he went, "And this is you thinking that you can sing." And I was like, I listened to it and I was like, "That ain't me." And he's like, "There's only me and you here." And I wasn't singing. And I was like, "I thought I sounded better than that." You know? And he's like, "No."
I love it. Okay, I have one final question.
Go
This has been awesome, by the way. I can't believe it's been an hour. It feels like 10 minutes.
on. I know.
One final question that I've asked everybody on Live at 5 this series is, when's the last time you checked your balls?
Well, I've always got my hands down my pants, but to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm checking for. I think I know what I'm checking for. Obviously, if it's something that shouldn't be there,
Mm,
but I am a lot more aware of it now. Obviously,
mm,
because of it, you know, because of you telling your story and going through that whole situation has made me more like, okay, you know, is there anything abnormal? But to be honest with you, I've not really noticed anything. So, like I said, I've always, you know, first thing in the morning or when you wake up, you know, your hand's always on it. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
And so, but consciously aware of checking, probably when I'm in the shower. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm,
But I think knowledge-wise, there's probably a lot more to learn to
yeah.
understand what I'm looking for. And also, I'm in that catchment age now where, you know, I'm prone to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it does prick my ears, not just necessarily, you know, your balls, but, you know, up your bum and, you know, your throat and all that sort of stuff. I'm really
Yeah.
conscious of being in that age bracket now. So,
Well, it all falls under the same category. It's just about being aware. And like, I mean, we talk about our mind all the time. So we have to be aware of our body and we have to be aware of anything that changes. And if it changes, but it's not necessarily something that feels right, there's power in just that awareness.
yeah, it is. I think you just become more sensitive, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You're kind of like, okay. So even with food that you put in your body, you're kind of sensitive the way that it makes you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even having a poo, if your poo changes, you're like, something ain't right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's different. So you do become a lot more. And Mark and I are quite open with stuff when we talk about stuff. I'm like, yeah, my poo was a bit so and so, and he was like, well, don't forget last night you had this, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So so I think in having that open dialogue about stuff that would normally be quite taboo is quite important. Even if it's with your pal down the road. So, but yeah.
Not to end it on a shit note, but
listen, mate, I will talk about shit all day long because I talk a lot of shit. But I, you know what I mean. But listen, I've really enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
It's always fun chatting to you, mate. Always. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing it. And I'm coming on your podcast soon.
You're on Friday, mate. You're in the diary.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to do it again on Friday.
We're going to talk about balls, Right, listen, David, mate, enjoy the rest of your evening. And anyone listening, join us tonight because I'm on a live with the Talking Heads, which is me, Rob, and Matt. We are talking about eating disorders, and Matt's going to lead the conversation. And we've got Lizzie, lovely Lizzie, who's going to come and talk about nutrition as well. So that's at 7 on this channel.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you for that, and I will be sure to pop in and see what you're all talking about.
Excellent. Very lucky, mate, and I'll speak to you soon. And I'll see you Friday.
Yeah, you will. You can let yourself out. I'm going to round this up.
All right. See you later, mate.
See ya. Bye. Thank you so much to Lee for joining me on today's Live at 5. What a great chat. I absolutely love that. Next week is the last and final Live at 5 of the series. I know. Don't cry from me, Argentina. I have the beautiful Sam Stevens on, and we are going to be talking all about his recent announcement that he's going to be doing his own TED Talk, amongst other things. It's going to be really exciting. You're going to want to be there. Don't miss out. Thank you so much to everybody who joined in today. Thank you for your questions. And that I have answered all of them, I think. Yeah. There we go. Great to see you. Come back next week. We'll do it all again one more time for the series. See ya. Bye.